good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you're watching this, either recorded or live. And here we are with another episode on being a first-time leader. So that's what I say I specialize in as a coach, because I feel like that segment of the population is really forgotten and overlooked. You just get promoted and then you don't get taught how to be a leader. And then you get promoted again and you get promoted again. And some basic things, some basic leadership skills have not been learned. And so that's what I help people with. And I believe all leadership starts with self. So I do dive into self-leadership. And I'm really excited to have my guest, Mike Loarie, today. And he and I met in our master's program, which was at the University of San Diego up on the hill. I always say if you're not from San Diego, there are 3 schools here that have the name San Diego in them, so it gets kind of confusing. But ours is up on the hill and with a view of the ocean and the bay. And what a great place to learn. And I'm just going to turn it over to Mike. He's going to talk about leadership and the role of leadership and the importance of having a leadership point of view. In other words, being able to tell your leadership philosophy, your leadership style to people. Okay, Mike, introduce us to yourself and then we'll take it off.
Well, first of all, may the 4th be with you.
I like it. I'm going to have to use that today.
Yeah, I got my stormtrooper. He's the good one sitting over here.
Oh, yeah, I do see him. Yeah, I do see him.
Yeah, it's my version of a hidden Mickey. Maybe we'll talk about my Disney time.
I got that on here
this morning, but thank you for having me. My name is Mike Loarie. I am retired from law enforcement after 35 years. Started in 1983 as a cadet with the San Diego Sheriff's Department. I was exposed to some leadership very young age, had a great mentor, and his name was Rob Ahern. And ended up leaving the post when I turned 21 at the rank of captain. So it was the highest level in the cadet program. Moved on to LA Sheriff's to get some experience. Lived and worked up there for almost 3 years as a sheriff's deputy. Worked in 2 different jails. Men's Central Jail was the largest in the country at the time. And then started to get an itch to come back down to San Diego. Didn't want to work custody anymore. So basically I landed at Escondido. Never really been there before. Ended up staying for 30 years, almost 30 years. Yeah, working every assignment there was to work, left as second in command, overseeing, everything when the chief was gone, but specifically the Services Bureau, Professional Staff Communications, Police and Fire Communications, training and hiring. During working at Escondido, I got my bachelor's degree in organizational leadership from Azusa Pacific University. Took me 20 years to get. It was a slow churn. But when I got out, I had the bug and actually found USD by accident in the program that Joan and I went to, Masters of Science in Executive Leadership. Had a great time. Missed it terribly. Had to miss a class, so that's why I was in Joan's class to make it up, so I could catch up with my cohort for graduation. Mm-hmm. So anyway, in 08, I graduated and stayed in touch with the university. And about 6 years ago, I found an opportunity to go back and teach, and that's what I have been doing in basically an executive leadership program for public safety. And I teach 9 of our 11 classes. Been doing it for coming on 6 years. Love it. And if you want to know more, it's I think Jones maybe got the link to it, but it's University of San Diego Law Enforcement and Public Safety Leadership. I will refer to it as LEPSL, LEPSL, and it's a master's degree.
Amazing. And what a change to get your Azusa, your bachelor's over 20 years, the change in leadership philosophy over the 20 years from when you started to when you ended.
Yes, it was. It was also addictive to me. Once I got hooked, I just couldn't get enough of it. The beauty of the programs, both at Azusa and at MSEL and in Lepsel, at USD's Lepsel, where I teach, is the practicality. Gary Ridge always said, learn it on a Friday and apply it on a Monday. I'll tell my students, learn it online today and apply it at your next shift.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's so powerful. So tell us, what is a leadership point of view?
Well, first was exposed to it from Ken Blanchard when we were in grad school. And a leadership point of view causes you to critically assess and think about what has caused me or shaped me to believe the things that I do and see them through that lens. More practically speaking, a leadership point of view is broken down to about 6 or 7 segments. One is, what are people or influencers in your life that has shaped your view on leadership? Oh, and I also should tell you, as I'm discussing this, I'm giving it to you through the lens of a public safety leader, or now as faculty member at a university. It's not as a dad or a son or a husband or a friend or a neighbor, because those can change a little bit. So anyway, there's the first thing to think about is what people or things have influenced you. For me, there were many, but I'll throw out 2. I had a paper route when I was a kid in a very hilly area of Carlsbad, and I used to put the paper on the porch because I want my customer to have a clean, dry, on-time paper where they can open the door, grab the paper, and go. So that drove my customer service.
Wow.
That's the thing. The person in my leadership point of view that has shaped me was my grandfather. In World War II, he wanted to fight. He was part of the railroad in Chicago. Government said, no, you're necessary here. So he would, after work, he would be an ambulance driver in the city of Chicago for the Red Cross. And that, he taught me the value of hard work. We could go on with it, but that's briefly it. The second part of your leadership point of view.
Interrupt for a second. Sure. Who taught you to put the paper on the doorstep?
The guy who had the route before me had been doing it, but the route got too big. And so he'd stopped, and then he went on vacation, and they had split the route and gave me half the route, which was his. And he was training me on where to deliver the paper. I mean, this is the old school. Papers were dropped off at 5 in the morning, or in our case, there were sometimes evening papers. You'd have to bind them up, put them in a bag if it was wet, rubber band them if it wasn't, stack them into the big bags, throw them on the bike, wrap them around, and go. So putting them on the porch, it increased the delivery time by at least 4 times, because these homes, they had long driveways.
Right.
Versus I could have just tossed them, and my other friend had a moped. So he was getting his route done real fast, but I didn't. I had a 10-speed bike and started to do it. And I don't know why I didn't question it. It was just, that's the way you deliver papers. And I had that route for 2 years. It got so big that my brother and my sister had to take each a third of it.
Wow. So you were already leading people at that age.
Yeah. Well, I'm the oldest of 6, so it was kind of in my blood. That's another influencer. If I had time, I could tell you a whole bunch more, but
I'm second to the youngest of 7.
Okay. So you got the other side of it.
Completely different. Yeah. But anyway, we were talking about influences. Your grandfather wanted to go to the war. They said he couldn't go. So he found another way to serve, to be a public servant, to be a servant leader.
Yes. And that also influenced my grandmother, who worked in blood donations. I believe it was for the Red Cross as well. So, I mean, just picture this. You get somebody who's working on the railroad all the live long day, and then at night and on the weekend is going to serve on a local level for the bigger picture, on a global level, on a world war. And although he wouldn't tell stories about everything, he led it by example. And, that's great. The problem with that is I will overplay it once in a while. And my view of work might not match, editorially speaking, your view of work. And now that's going to create some conflict. And it's going to be even more conflict if I'm the leader and you're the follower. So I have to be careful that I'm not pace setting or unduly influencing. But the bottom line is, Papa taught me what the value of hard work is.
Nice, nice. Okay, so they're talking about the leadership point of view, and we have influencers. And
so after the influencers are what are your values? And it could be something else, but for purposes, I'll break it down. The values are what are the things that you believe are to be true. They're usually based off of a principle. Principle is standing; it doesn't move. A value can change over time. An example would be marijuana. It used to be illegal. People went to prison for a seed, and now you can go down and buy it at a strip mall and enjoy it however you want to do. The value changed. So my values are listed in hierarchical order from the perspective as a police leader. It's first is safety. The next one's professionalism. The third one is work itself, and the fourth is fiscal mindfulness. And I'll just briefly break them down for you. Safety, we're in the business of safety, the feeling of safety, practicing good practices of safety. Doesn't mean you call a SWAT team out for a parking violation. It's the real safety stuff. We're community caretakers. In public safety, when someone cannot, if they're having a problem at 1:30 in the morning and it's pouring rain out, there's not a whole lot of places to call. And it's our business to go in and give best practices and to get there quickly and to respond accordingly and not overdo it and not underdo it and find that sweet spot right in between. So safety is my number one value. And I would communicate that to the team that worked with me at the police department. The second value is courtesy or professionalism. When you get to the call, everyone wants the biggest, strongest, smartest cop to show up to solve the problem, and they want them there right now. But I can tell you what, the second thing they're going to want is they're not going to want to be treated like dirt. Whether it's the bad guy or gal or the good guy or gal. So my expectation was that you'll be professional and courteous. Don't let anybody step all over you, but you got to be empathetic to the what the situation is, and you have to learn how to communicate properly. You don't step out of your car and say, "What do you want?" It's as you're stepping out of your car, you say, "How can I help you?" And if it took a while to get there, you say, "I've been really busy tonight. We had a stabbing, and that's why I'm 2 hours late to your call of burglary. I'm so sorry. How can I help you?" That 10 or 15 seconds is going to last you that whole call. So courtesy, very important. I don't expect someone to be courteous over safety. These bad guys that we are fighting are not gentlemen and ladies. They are bad people. And we don't need to stop and be courteous to them when the bullets are flying. We have to take care of business that way. And I have to be careful with my words about when I say those things. But I expect them to be professional and to keep it together. And don't get that last jab in of a verbal comment to get someone spiked up. Third thing, we have safety, courtesy, or professionalism. The third thing is work. I expect when someone comes to work in a public safety environment, or any environment actually, they will start when they're supposed to start. They will finish when they are supposed to finish. If they have an assignment to do, they're going to submit it. It's going to put their name on it, and it'll be accurate. Might not always be complete. We can never have things complete, but it'll be accurate. It'll be honest. It'll be truthful. There'll be some good decisions made behind it. We train police officers in academy for 6 months. We put them in a car for 4 more months. We have a huge investment on decision making. I count that as work. Make a good decision. You don't have to arrest somebody every single time. Maybe a diversion program for a child, or getting a community involved is going to solve the loud party calls versus having to go and give a citation or an arrest. And we could go on with that, but basically the third item is work. Do your work, do it well, do it on time, make it neat. And then the fourth item is it's all about efficiencies. I call it fiscal mindfulness because it is more driven towards the sergeant, which is our first line supervisor, or in the case of because I want to be inclusive. We have professional staff too, and we have dispatchers. But the fiscal mindfulness part is, are we doing things with the taxpayers' money that is in alignment with what the expectation was? If I need a 4-hour overtime slot to be filled every Tuesday, am I looking at my schedule the right way? Because that tells me we have to do an adjustment. If I need an 8-hour slot filled, am I filling it with someone with 10 hours? Because it's just easier to do a whole shift. And those are fiscal mindfulness. Same with spending of money. And as you move higher in an organization, I had the $42 million budget at one point. And so looking at things with the critical eye under fiscal mindfulness. So you have these 4 things that are my values: safety, professionalism or courtesy, work, and fiscal mindfulness. Here's how it plays out. Don't ever put fiscal mindfulness in front of safety. We had a night shift lieutenant who thought he would save the company, the department, some money by running lower than minimum shift expectations. We have a certain number of officers that have to be out in the field at any given time. And so he ran it short, and he was boasting how he was saving money. Well, what happened to safety then? What happened to courtesy? What happened to work? You can't put fiscal mindfulness in front of those. It doesn't work. It won't work. And we could play around with the math all we wanted to here. You can't put courtesy in front of safety, or you can't put work in front of safety. In the case of the lieutenant who was invited to go spend more time somewhere else later on because there were some other issues, it turns out the safety practices were violated because you didn't have enough police officers on scene. The esprit de corps started to go down, so guess where courtesy started to go? And the work actually increased because the load on the people that were having to do it, instead of spreading it out, it got to be too much. And there's a diminishing return. That kind of work is not scalable for a police officer. And when you have 7 or 8 police reports down and still expected to go do the job, you're going to have a horrible return on your investment. So we ended up spending some more money. And that's because the hierarchical value systems were out of whack.
So then these are your values, and these, it sounds like, are your expectations of your staff also.
Exactly.
Okay.
And I would communicate it to them. I would tell them, if you were a new supervisor coming on, I would have this discussion, the whole POV discussion, but this discussion, and I give you a challenge coin, because my challenge coin on the back side has my 4 values. And then every time a shift would start, as a captain, I would have a whole bureau. That means if I was the patrol captain, all 3 shifts operating on a 24-hour basis, I would go down to the briefings and tell them what my leadership point of view. And then I would have a briefing with the sergeants and the lieutenants. Sergeants would be our first line supervisors or professional staff supervisors. And then I had a meeting with our managers, our lieutenants, and our professional staff, depending on where I was in the organization. And they would get the leadership point of view as well, but it'd be more specific, like fiscal mindfulness would be delivered heavily when I'm dealing with a leader. And so the bottom line is, and I know this for a fact because I had people telling me, and feedback back to me was, we always knew where Mike was coming from. Don't bring me a problem where safety and courtesy were abandoned over something else. Actually bring me a problem, because I welcome bad news, welcome here. Another topic for another time, a sign that was in my office. But the expectation, yes, you're absolutely right. I communicate, this is what I expect. And in return, I got it. And it's because I spent some time.
I feel I've done the leadership point of view at 3 different places that I worked. And it's amazing to just say, this is what I expect of you. This is what you can expect of me. And this is what I expect of you. And no one has ever said that to anyone. And so we're just thinking, so honesty is my first value. So, and then I define what honesty is, and then I give them an example. So since honesty is my first value, it would behoove you to tell me right away if you got in an accident and not let me discover that your tail light is busted, or something like that. So it's going to be worse if you don't tell me right away. Yeah. So
That's a great example. So relatable.
And that they know, like, Jones, she's going to want to know what's happening. Yeah. And then I think with my coaching clients, I take them through almost everyone I take through a values exercise to begin with. I know there's more to the leadership point of view. We'll get back to it. And I say, let me tell you, if you say what your values are at an interview, you're going to blow all the other candidates away. If you have a leadership point of view, if you have a leadership philosophy, you're going to blow all the other candidates away. People are going to be like, wow, you actually have prepared. You actually know what you're talking about. Yeah. So I think it really is great. If you don't do anything else on the leadership point of view, is to know your values and your expectations. But okay, so
I'm glad you brought that up, Joan. If I can just throw this in.
Sure.
If you can figure what your leadership point of view is, then I highly recommend, I will argue all day, then you need to have it distilled down, and you need to bring that to a job interview, a prospective promotion, a transfer within the organization. Because I couldn't agree with you more. Other end of the discussion, they're not expecting it. It's like when the parade shows up when there was no parade, and you just happen to love parades.
Yep. You're just gonna blow them away. And I say, if there's never, you look for a chance for it to fit into a question, and if there's not a chance at the end, when most of the time you have a closing statement, or is there anything else you want to say, throw it in there. And
it's question 11. There's always a question 11. Is there anything that we didn't cover today?
Exactly.
And that's when you have a 90-second POV. And if you can't get anything else in there, get the first two. What and who have influenced you, and what are your values?
Yeah, totally. So for the leadership point of view, we talked about influencers. We talked about values. Is there anything else in the leadership point of view you want to tell us about?
Well, I could talk a lot about it, but there are some other components. I'll just briefly touch it. What's your purpose? Or your mission? Mine is to consistently meet or exceed your expectation. And those words are carefully chosen. We could debate about it. We could think it's great or not. It is a play. I got it from Deloitte. Was one of my mentors was working there. And by the way, the values that I discussed, those weren't the first. That's not the first set when I was at grad school. That developed over time, and I got it from Disney before I worked there. I attended Disney University, Keys, and at the time there were 4 keys: safety, courtesy, show, and efficiency was for Disney. Now they have a 5th key of inclusion. I don't know enough about it to talk to it, but I borrowed that from them and applied it to my work, and I've been using it for years, well before I worked there. And then I ended up finding out more from them in my training. So I want to make sure that, I have a little disclaimer here. I didn't come up with them on my own. I made them fit, though, on my own. So after that, we've got, I discussed the purpose. Next is your expectations or your beliefs on leading people. That's pretty simple. Most of us can probably spit those out faster than we can write them down. Be on time, be honest, yours. It matches a value, and blah, 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 blah. But here's the zinger on the next one. What do you expect of me? It's a question. Now, when you're delivering your communication, your leadership point of view, you can't ask the audience, what is but you can frame it as, I let the people that work on my crew, or that I have the privilege of leading, I will offer them, what do they expect of me? And this is what I suspect they will say: be present, be on time, be honest with us. When you say you're going to be somewhere, be there. Don't give me unnecessary work. Be be courageous. So you throw a couple of those things out there. However, that part, you're really going to have to wait and see what do they expect of you. And I tell you, the first time I delivered my leadership point of view as a lieutenant to my sergeants, we were working PM shift in Escondido and patrol, which is a shift you're left alone on. You know, chief's gone, captains are gone. You know, you are the de facto chief of police, and for the whole night, I had a sergeant get incredibly upset with me. And he was yelling at me. I expect you to be on time. I expect you when I hand in work to read it. And I said, where is this coming from? Because you and I have known each other for years. And he said, I'm just mad because the prior lieutenant didn't do any of these things.
Exactly.
And then he said, and nobody's ever asked me my opinion on it.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty important. My advice, if you're a new or emerging leader, go ask your boss. You know, if someone asks you what they should expect of you. If you're a new leader, take a chance. You aren't going to get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Go to your team and say, what do you expect of me? And you better have some thick skin, because they might not be talking about you. And you need to give it that pause, or you need to approach it with neutrality, as I've heard you say before, not with strength.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then the last part, basically, so we have what your expectations are, beliefs on leading people, is how are you going to get us there? It's a loaded question,
Mm-hmm.
but not really. My answer is I'm going to lead by example. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to apologize when I've made a mistake. It's not going to be conditional. If I then know I didn't treat you right, or if I don't know and I'm sorry are perfectly good statements. So I'm gonna lead by example. When I make mistakes, I'm going to apologize, and when I don't know, I'm going to tell you. To me, that's how you get there. Now, that might be for you or anybody in the audience listening. You know, it might be different, but that's it. That's your leadership point of view. And it'll take you about 40 hours to figure it out. And then hopefully you can communicate it to people.
Right. We worked on it over, was it 2 weekends or 1 weekend? The whole weekend at least.
I think it was 2.
Yeah. Yeah.
I did mine first to get to
Just get it over with.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gosh, you touched on so many good topics that I had something really profound to say, and poof, it's gone. But I did want to go back in time, and you had a mentor at some point in your life, and I can't imagine what that must have been like. Like I tell, like some of the clients I have are young, and I can't imagine having a coach in my 20s or 30s or even 40s, like someone that was listening to me and helping me. And so how valuable is it for someone to have a mentor?
I don't know how to equate that in value. I always looked at it. It was a gift. And Rob taught me. I had insecurities as a kid. Terrible case of acne. Very, very low self-esteem. High school was just, to me, a nuisance, which probably dictated why it took me so long to get to college. But Rob taught me about that. And he taught me how to assess a situation and take control over it. And what he taught me was what I needed at that time in my life. And it gave me a boost. And his final lesson was basically, you need to leave San Diego County and you need to go up to a big agency, because I had never even dreamed about going to Los Angeles. And in his case, it was, I want you to work in custody. Because I was 21 years old. I was the youngest in my academy by, probably 5 years, maybe 4. You normally don't hire 21-year-olds, but I had 4 years of experience as a cadet from 17 to 21. And I had a mentor. And anyway, Los Angeles picked me up in the academy, and the weight of the badge is pretty heavy. And
Mm-hmm.
next thing I know, I'm working at Men's Central Jail in a module of 1,100 inmates to 3 deputies. You will learn very quickly that this can get you into a whole bunch of trouble, and that these aren't strong enough to get you out.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
So, I would like to see a little bit more of this with
Mm-hmm.
the challenges law enforcement's facing today, and
Mm-hmm.
keep this quiet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some of the old teachers, like Covey says, stimulus, pause, response. And I think the pause is the most important thing. Even if it's a nanosecond, it's just, do I really need to? Oh, I can guarantee you, and you know me a little bit, that almost every time I've gotten in trouble at work, probably with my family too, it's been this opened up and it should have just stayed closed. You know that expression that says, better to keep your mouth closed and people think you're a fool than to open it and remove all doubt. So yeah,
Yeah.
I liked what you
Yeah, I think
said.
that was Mark Twain.
Was it? Okay. Okay.
I'm not
Thanks.
positive on it,
Hmm.
but I've heard that.
Hmm. So tell us, let's have a advertisement about your classes. I think that's just amazing. I would like to be able to help you promote it.
Okay.
Or maybe you don't need any promotion. Maybe you got people waiting.
Well, we were on Thursday night been invited to welcome our latest group of students. They're from all across the country. I think I'm going to just throw out, there's 60 of them. It could be 50, it could be 80. I don't remember.
Hmm.
But we're a 100% online program,
Okay.
master's
Hmm.
program. We are primarily geared towards public safety with a bent heavily towards law enforcement.
Hmm.
However, we have had fire EMS in our programs. We've had communications professionals, records professionals. Early on, I had a gentleman who was an investigator for Google in my class. Um, we have some military,
Hmm.
and we've had private investigators. And one person that I had worked in the social services realm,
Hmm.
so very close with public safety, which would include law enforcement, hospitals, EMS, and fire, and then all the other tentacles that attach. Uh, so we're geared towards it. We have originally we started with an idea that the cohort would just travel through with a very limited class size, but the demand was so high. We now have one course designer for the whole program, and it is not based upon any sort of prerequisite. You can join the program at any semester. And then
Okay.
we have about 10 to 15 faculty members that guide off the design of the program. So we're all on the same sheet, but then we have our own personality. So my cohort, and I call them cohort with a capital C, because we're a team of 20 to 25 people that are with each other for 7 weeks. We'll guide off what Professor Morrison might have designed for organizational leadership class. That's the one coming up. But then when we get into our discussion prompts online and the assignments that are due, then all authority and autonomy come back to me. So you get a little bit of a unique perspective. And in between, I'll throw in leadership point of view, or what's the role of the leader as my students are addressing the prompts, because it also gets you out of a question you don't know the answer to. So if I talk about a theory, let's say it's going to be in-group, out-group theory, and you get stuck on it, you can say, well, the role of a leader in my organization and in-groups and out-groups to avoid cliques. Well, boom, you have just opened your door to get an answer.
Hmm.
So that's how we run the program. We've got organizational theory, we've got organizational change, organizational leadership, We have a data fluency and analysis class, which would be similar to statistics, public safety law, budget and finance, communications, conflict resolution. Love it. Absolutely love it, because our job is all about managing it. And when we don't do it well, you see it on YouTube and on TV. And then there's community assessments, where there's teams of the students are broken into teams. I don't teach that class, so I can't speak too much of it. And so all of this rolls through 2 classes per semester. So it's 7-week class, and then right on top of it's another 7-week, and then there's a little bit of a break. And we run 3 semesters a year: fall, spring, and summer. And so every June there's a graduation, or a virtual graduation nowadays. And we push out 80 to 100 students. And these are future police chiefs. These are future dispatch management center people. These are future public safety records managers. And the theory is that it's a force multiplier, and that if we continue the rate we're going with a total population of 265, we are going to be impacting the landscape if we haven't already started.
Right. And it sounds, I don't know if you've ever read anything by Malcolm Gladwell.
Yes, I have.
And
it's a tipping point.
Right? Hell, it just is like a collision of like thoughts, and now this gigantic need for leaders in the police department, which 20, 40 years ago, I don't know if the leader went with police officer.
Well, it did go, but it didn't look the same, because when I started in the 80s, if the sergeant wasn't there, it was the person with the lowest badge number who was put in charge.
That means he was hired. That's the person who was hired the longest ago?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Today we'll laugh at it. And, it makes me wonder, in 30 years, what are they going to laugh at us for today?
Right.
But that's how it was run. And so there was a very high dependency on people with military experience, because that's where you really had the consistency. Now the expectations are different, and POST, which is the Police Officer Standards of Training, every state has a version of it. Well, I think they do. In California, we absolutely do. They will mandate some leadership training. And we recognize that in our program too. There are some, if you've gone to the National Academy, the FBI National Academy, which is a topic for another time, we will allow the classes over there to be transferred into our program, or Post Command College, or the San Diego Regional Leadership Institute.
Nice.
I'm sorry, I get off the subject because it's exciting and it's different. And yes, there's been an incredible sea change from 30 years ago to today.
Well, what I'm thinking about for first-time leaders, and a snippet that I could cut out of this video is for first-time leaders. Let me start over. You called to see if you could volunteer. And so on Sunday, I have a show that's called Stories of Serendipity and Synchronicity. And it's about the awe and wonder of life, and how, like you're saying, you just called. When I was in MSEL, when we were in the master's program together and separately, a friend of mine, a really good friend, Gail, she saw on TV that Ronald McDonald was building a parking garage, and they were putting units for the parents and the kids on top, or I guess the parents and the kids were in the hospital. And she said, I wonder if they need any help with their finances. So she from that TV news deal, she called and eventually became the CFO at Ronald McDonald House in San Diego. And so you see this program. it must have just been starting or in the formation, and you're like, oh man, I'd like to get involved in that. I'm going to see if they need any volunteers. So tell us more about that.
So after, and by the way, Gail, she was an outstanding leader, and I miss her. I know who you're talking about.
I miss her so much, much every day, every day. For those of you that don't know, she passed away very suddenly about 5 years ago. Yeah. Big loss.
Okay, so how did I find it? I stayed in touch with the university when I graduated, but things weren't clicking, and I don't know why, but it is out of the School of Business Administration, and in public safety, there wasn't always this like fit. I get it. I understand. I tried to do some volunteering, but it never really matched. So I'd go to the mixers, and I'd see friends like Gary Ridge and Ken Blanchard and Vicky Halsey show up, and then former students. And then I get this advertisement comes across my email about this new program through the University of San Diego for public safety leadership. It's a master's. And the first thing I thought was, well, how come nobody told me about this?
Exactly. I have that thought all the time. I have that thought about you right now. I'm like, wait a second, how did he get to teach at USD and I haven't been able to teach? Continue.
Well, mine was also with a heavy dose of ego. Like, they should have consulted me.
Don't they know? They know me.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, yeah.
Totally. Absolutely.
It's all about me. And as soon as everyone understands that, we'll all be better off. So all kidding aside, I contacted the university, and my intent was to volunteer to get the program off the ground. If you tell me I have something to do down at USD, boom, I'm in the car and I'm southbound. No problem. You know? So they tried to get me into the program, and I politely said, no, thank you. I just spent $40,000 with my graduate program. And by the way, my daughter's going there as an undergrad, and I am tapped out. I can't spend any more money. And so they said, well, we'll put you in touch with the department chair, Dr. Eric Fritzfold. And we ended up, he says, well, send me your CV or your resume, whatever you want. I'm thinking, what? They take volunteering seriously. We had a discussion. I happened to be out, so the discussion I had was in my car. And we got home, and my wife went inside, and she was like, oh, I'm going inside. Good luck. And 90 minutes later, I came into the house, and she said, what happened? I said, well, I think I just had a job interview. And I talked to him about a leadership development program that I'd started with with two friends of mine at the city of Escondido, and how successful it was. Very organic story for another time. And he said, I'll get back to you in 3 days. I thought I was going to have an interview in 3 days. I thought this was a pre-interview, even though we never talked about working there.
But still to be a volunteer, or now you're thinking this is much different?
Yeah. Well, not but an hour and a half later, email job offer came across the wire. And I was, you know that feeling when you go to Disneyland? Or it's Christmas morning, or it's the last day of school and you're getting on your bike and you got the whole summer ahead of you, and you're in 6th grade, so your responsibility levels aren't high. Yeah, I had that.
Wow.
Because I thought there's no, even when I was going to class there and we'd walk across campus to go to lunch, I thought the only way I'm going to get a job here is to go get my PhD. So anyway, it happened. And then since then, I have the best boss I've ever worked for, ever in my entire life. And he has given me some opportunities, hire new professors. I'm on the interview panel, special projects, mentor new professors when we bring them on board. And basically carte blanche. Well, I don't mean it that way, because in case other faculty members are listening, he has offered me, if I want to teach a class or I cannot teach a class, there is a mutual feeling of understanding and respect that there is no shame involved in it whatsoever. When I went up and worked at Disney, I had to actually redact commitment that I had made. The class hadn't started yet, but I didn't feel any sort of weirdness about it at
Wow.
all. And
Wow.
as I will be there as long as they keep inviting me, or in the second that it becomes work to me, because I don't have to, I get to.
Hmm.
Then we will part our ways, because I will not have 20 students suffer because I'm not looking at things the right way.
Oh my
That's
gosh,
not
I
going to
love
happen.
that. That's that's profound right there. Yeah. Um, after so it's always, even before the pandemic, it was it's never going to go come on campus once in a while like we did.
No, we refer to as asymmetric or asynchronous learning. So it's been around. If you think
Oh,
about
sure.
it, when we
Sure.
were kids, there was correspondence school, right?
Hmm.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because what's interesting is we've had the discussion in faculty meetings about Zooming it, and I've probably done 10, maybe 12 Zooms. I can't get anybody to show up. I mean,
Mm.
excuse me, I do get people to show up. I invited 33 people. I was teaching a capstone course, which is the senior project, and a regular class at the same time. So 33 students between the two classes. 3 people showed up.
Yep. Yep.
And one of them was like really, really late, and one had to leave early. So if you looked at it, I had 2 people there the whole time. And the thing is I'm okay with that, because this is their time.
Hmm.
But the expectation, my view of it is, they didn't sign up to be any one place at any one time, other than, Friday night there's a deadline for part of the work, and Monday night there's a deadline. And in our line of work, you give us deadlines, we're going to meet or exceed them.
Hmm.
But don't give me a Zoomer to show up. It's not going to work. So we're noodling around with maybe going to Zoom office hours. I still think the attraction for our program is the asynchronicity, and is people in our profession that work these crazy weird hours,
Hmm.
and that at any moment could be called back to the guard. We have a lot of people that are reservists, or at any given moment could be told, hey, Sacramento's expecting a problem. And, I've got sheriff's deputies and police officers from SAC PD, that are working. Well, they're not going to be able to get their classwork done the right way. So then we work that out so we can keep academic integrity. But they don't
Wow.
want to be at any one spot at any one time. And if you can get over that
Hmm.
in distance learning, it's like it's having a text message that sometimes you're going to take 2 days to answer me, and sometimes you're answering me right away. It's just
Hmm.
hit and miss.
Hmm. Hmm.
Then it's a great program.
Wow. So you told us a lot about yourself professionally, and I know you're a Disney fanatic, if I can use that word. So tell us about your love of Disney, where that came from, and all that.
Okay, well, it probably started when I was a kid, because I lived in Fountain Valley, and I was a really
Oh.
good student in grade school. And my friend, his parents were very well off, so my mom and dad twice a year would allow me to go to Disneyland with my friend John. And so his mom would just drop us off. 7-year-olds getting dropped off at Disneyland.
Right? It's a different world, right?
Whole new world, no
Uh-huh.
pun intended.
Uh-huh.
Then later on, when I was at Azusa, I was starting to look at the model. And all throughout, I'd gone to Disneyland, and started looking at the business model, and became more interested in the historical aspects, while at the same time enjoying that 7-year-old that got to wander around all the time. And then I started to network, and I was introduced to different cast members. That's what they call employees, and met an Imagineer, and was given a look inside behind the curtain.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I attended the Disney University Roadshow, basically on the 5 keys. Those were my values. 4 keys, excuse me. Now there's 5. And then I started to network further, thinking down the road, could I work there? and I met some operations managers, and gave me incredible insight. And also, I discovered that it is almost a closed system. You have got to know somebody, and I'm willing to move there, but I got to make sure that I do my diligence on this end, because a move at this time of my life, we're talking, it's huge. So basically, one day I thought, why don't I give part-time a shot? And they just so happened to be doing a job fair. So I went up, and you have to pass a couple tests to get to the interview. And there was no interview. Basically, they hired me on the spot. And I'm like, well, should I ask questions? And the smart part of me said, no, just shut up and smile and say thank you. So I was given a opportunity to be what they refer to as security host. So it's security guard. And their concern was, wait a second, you're second in command of 350 people, and now, okay, you're on the floor. I said, not a problem. Not a problem whatsoever. Because to be a good leader, you have to be a good follower too. And if you can't do that, then you shouldn't be a leader. Anyway, ended up working there, and the deal was half. The part-time was, you only had to work 2 days a week. So the drive from Escondido up there, no big deal. I have an electric car, so it didn't cost me too much. But 2 days a week became 6 days a week, with split days off, and when it was 5 days a week. And I didn't want to give up my university job. And I felt I was going backwards. Although there was incredible opportunity. And I know if I would have stayed, I could have moved into something, because I had the education behind me. And watching what they do was awesome. And it was just as awesome, though, of being part of opening up Star Wars Galaxy's Edge from back of house operations. And interacting with the guests when I would work downtown Disney Patrol. I mean, I had all these different spiels. To see a little kid, with a tiara on. Hey, princess, how you doing? Okay, obviously you could not do that if you're not in a Disney security host uniform, but that was really cool. Or working all night and then being in the morning and meeting the guests as they would show up from the hotels for early admission, and explaining to the kids, hey, we ran out of pixie dust, so if you laugh a lot, it makes some more, and we'll get the rest of the cleaning done, and you'll have a magical day, and all these stories that go with it. And
oh my gosh.
I enjoyed that, but I could not keep up with it, which doesn't matter, because with COVID, some of my friends that did work there full time, they were laid off. And now they're getting back on their feet. I'm going back up Friday as a guest, so hopefully I'll see some familiar cast member faces. And anyway, it was a great time. I would do it all over again, and I don't know if that chapter's closed.
Yeah,
I am still willing to move up into the area, but I'm not going to work a gate. I think I have more to offer. I think God put me in that spot to get a good understanding of the company and to satisfy, that little kid in me. Like, how did they make that rock look real? Well, exactly. I look on the backside of the rock now. I know. It's a great company. The training was excellent. The people, and who wouldn't want to work for a company? You know what their mission statement is at Disneyland?
Wait, let me think. I think it's safety. I thought
That's
it was
value.
Oh, that's a value. Okay. No, I know it's very short.
Yeah, put your seatbelt on.
Oh,
to create
no,
happiness. Create happiness.
Create happiness.
They do it with a safe park, a courteous park, good show, and efficiencies. I mean, Disney taught you how to stand in line. That's an efficiency.
That people just stand in line and there's not riots is amazing.
Yeah.
A line that goes like this for hours, you're standing in line. That's crazy.
It's a sign of a world-class operation.
Another thing,
I wish I could tell you all the things that I feel about it. It's incredible. So I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
Well, two things I want to say to that, and then I'll let you go. Walt Disney was also a creative, a visionary, took risks, took chances. I mean, nobody wanted to have anything to do with him in the beginning. And so I equate him with you. And then for those of you that are listening, don't know it, not only the business, Mike is calling it the business model, the leadership style of Disneyland is studied all over the place, and how they get, how it runs as we see it so smoothly all the time. So if you're interested, just Google Disney Learning or Disney Academy or something.
Disney University, I believe.
Disney
Excuse
University.
me, no. The Disney University is the internal, I think. It's Disney Institute, DI. That's where I went and took it was a road show. Cal State University hosted it. You're going to pay for it. It was $500, but you're going to walk away with some leadership principles you are not going to find in a book.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, after what we paid for our master's degree, $500 sounds like a bargain.
Yeah.
Hey, so anything else you want to tell people before we log off, and how can people get a hold of you if they want to chat with you more?
I am on LinkedIn, Mike Loarie, Mike under Michael. That would be a great way. You can see what I've done. Being an emerging leader or first time going in is going to be scary.
Mm-hmm. And
I would tell you that, and I do this when I teach, I ask the students, because normally if I'm in the classroom, it was before COVID, you'd have a name tag sitting in front of you, the kind that's folded as a tent. And I'd ask them to, with their non-dominant hand, I want you to write your name as legibly and as fast as you can on that side of your name tent that only you see. And I could tell you the body language is so funny. I'd love to video it because nobody likes to write with their non-dominant hand. Mm-hmm. And then I say, now turn that around so everybody can see it. And there's people that they're just appalled. So now turn it back so you can see it. Leadership and learning about it is uncomfortable. It's like writing with your non-dominant hand. Mm-hmm. But here's the thing. You can still recognize that's your name. Mm-hmm. And if you work hard enough at it, your non-dominant hand will become just as good as your dominant hand. But in the meantime, if you're working hard at it, look at your name tag from the other side, because that's what people are going to see. They're not going to see the old saying, police work and sausage. If you like them, don't watch them being made. Leadership's the same way. They taste great, but don't watch them being made. So the emerging leader, my message is to be able to put yourself in a position of vulnerability. Find somebody who will mentor you through or coach you or teach you. And there's a difference between the three. You can look that up yourself. Mm-hmm. And then at all times, no matter what, I don't care what your mission statement is or your values, you have to understand the value of a relationship, mm-hmm. especially mm-hmm. for the people that you do not agree with. Because that is going to teach you about yourself. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not saying to be friends with a maniac. That's not my point. But people with differing points of view, there is no reason why you can't have, you can have an argument or discourse with them, but you should never fight with them. Mm-hmm. And if you I have friends that look at law enforcement as an unnecessary thing. So I see there's a challenge. One, for me to understand where they're coming from, or two, for me to convince them. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, but I always respect the relationship. So if you're a new leader, look into that being uncomfortable, look into having a mentor, coach, or teacher. Mm-hmm. Be afraid to take some risk, and always, always, always value people. Mm-hmm. If you do that, everything else is going to fall into place mm-hmm. for you. Mm-hmm. If you want to learn more about our program, go to the University of San Diego, LEPSL, Law Enforcement Public Safety Leadership. You'll just hit the homepage, and the rest will walk you through. You can see what our course curriculum is. You can take a look at our faculty, and you can, if that works for you, you are more than welcome to connect with me. I can tell you some more. You can go into we have white papers on what the program's about. You can take a look and see. And if that's your line of work and that would fit into you, I highly recommend it, because I can almost guarantee you, there are no absolute guarantees, but that's going to take you to places that you will never go otherwise.
Right. Right. I 100% agree. 100% agree. Well, thank you so much for your time. And you said a couple times that that story's for another day. So I'm going to have you on another day so we can talk about whatever those stories were. Mike, thank you
Okay.
so much. Talk to you later.
Thank you.